Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning, John?
I am wonderful. I appreciate you carving out a little time out of your hectic schedule to jump in. I know we've been trying to calendar this for a while, so I'm glad we're finally here.
Well, I'm glad to be part of it finally. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes. So Sarah, you are a wealth of knowledge and information when it comes to the inner workings of the real estate industry, the real estate business, the business models, and just your incredible career. And I'm just excited to kind of dive in and unpack and the things that you've experienced and seen. And I don't know if it necessarily things repeat themselves as much as there's I forget, somebody said it's like a close cousin to certain things. And I think
Sure.
we've really come first full circle a few times, and just kind of interesting where we're at. But I would love for you to just kind of unpack and share a little bit about your story, your journey, and we'll work our way up to kind of in the situation we're in today.
It sounds good. Sounds good. So I like to call myself a corporate refugee. I finally had enough of the corporate world, and I felt like my value systems were often a little bit, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Just a little compromised at times.
Ah,
And so
word.
I decided, I want to be in business for myself. I want to really build something that I can be proud of. I'd like to be a leader in the community. I'd like to be a leader of people, which is something I frankly had always done. I just wanted a different environment. So lo and behold, one day I decided to get my real estate license, and I joined a brokerage and realized I had been an expert in my field. And then I absolutely was a complete and total idiot in the world of real estate. So 90 days later, I felt like my brain was working again. The fog was starting to lift. But I built a solid career and I built a team. I ended up making a decision to go into a leadership role with my company. It was something I considered very heavily because I couldn't see the difference between that and the corporate career I just came out of. I think I still was a bit shell shocked. And I chose to do that because I love developing people. It's always
Mm.
been one of my strengths, and I felt like that would give me the platform to do that. So I did that. I was in leadership from honestly 2001 until 2021 with that company in various forms. I was a team leader. I was a general manager. We had 5 offices and a total of 800 agents in those offices. And I was a coach with our international division. I coached the franchise owners and the team leaders. And so, honestly, developing people is a love of mine, but my business skill set is very, very, very strong. So it's been really a marriage of those two things that has driven me through the years. And, after this many years in the industry, it's now 25 years in the industry, I decided to do something different. I wanted to live life on my terms. And so now I'm part of just a wonderful organization, the Good Home Team, which is powered by EXP in place.
Yeah, yeah, and just that timing, right? The transition for you to be available to transition in there. And over that 20 plus year career in kind of those different positions. The first thing you said that transitioning out of kind of that corporate refugee was the value proposition being compromised. And during that 20 plus year run, kind of in that role that you were in, and then the few years after that before transitioning in with Nick, like what were some of the voids that you would see when you're trying to develop these different franchisees and kind of their thought process and their structure? I can just imagine, maybe they know how to sell real estate, but there might be some business, savvy, not quite there. But also more so the leadership side of things that really, as you and I've talked about, really comes and everything starts and hinges on the core values.
Absolutely. And, real estate is a journey, leadership is a journey, developing people is all a journey. And when people move from, say, perhaps a real estate sales career into another facet of their career, there are so many new skills to learn, and it really is like doing something new again. So I found that most real estate agents are not good business people. So as they become leaders in the industry, that's a set of skills that has to be developed. And leadership is something that has to be developed as well. We all know natural leaders, people that we will follow or whom we respect, but leading people is far more than telling people what to do. And you have to earn the right to lead people. So, doing that in a way that matters and that's aligned with who I am is extraordinarily important. And that's the piece that I love the most. So there are lots of voids, but we also know that in any industry, in anything that you learn, as you move up the food chain, so to speak, as you increase your visibility, you have to increase your knowledge. And if you want to be effective, if you want to lead people, if you want to run organizations, you really have to understand that you may not come in with the right skill set that you have to learn.
Yeah, I had a really good conversation with Michelle Humes yesterday, and we, really dove into the leadership side of things, and kind of her role now and in that team lead and in the constant development. But when you're working with, in these other companies and in the develop of leadership, where do you kind of tactically have them kind of focus first? Where do you want them to kind of, there was a sequence, hey, this is great over here, but you got to get this first before any of this matters.
Honestly, I was thinking about that just the other day, actually. And trust is the foundation of leadership. So when people start to lead, they have to build trust, and it's trust in the small things, because if people don't trust you in the small things, they'll never trust you in the big things. So creating a culture of trust is hugely important. People have to know that they can be who they are. They have to know that it's okay to make mistakes and grow through them. In fact, that's really the best way to grow is through mistakes. But having that trust is so critical that without it, you'll never truly be an effective leader. I have walked many leaders through John Maxwell's 5 levels of leadership so that they understand leadership is really not authoritarian. That certainly happens in organizations, but I think the pinnacle of leadership is being able to lead and people follow you, not because they have to, but because they choose to. They know that their life will be better because you have had a role in it.
I love that. Yeah. And it was crazy. I was thinking about this last night as well. After walk, wrapping up a run, and was just reflecting on the day and then thinking about the conversation with Michelle, and then, kind of leadership. And it's like, well, what makes an effective leader? Like what truly, you hear a bunch of things. I hear, Glenn's is that, you're helping people be productive. Okay. I like, what you just said there. They, they want to be a part, they want to be around, they want to help you because you're helping them to be better. So what is it? Like what defines, like if you was to say, yep, we can measure this. If there was a measurement, is there a measurement?
There is. I think a measurement of leadership is how many leaders you have actually created. So when you develop people and you've led people along the way, you've given them wings. You've encouraged them to be the best that they can do. You have helped them maximize their potential. Then they become leaders in their own right. So you can measure the contribution of leaders by the number of leaders they have developed.
Yeah, I do. I agree with you 100% on that. That's definitely, that's kind of what we look at, right? We look at, okay, well, who have they helped that's leading within their organization, or who have they, people that have branched off and done their own things and really leading, their own organizations, or leading well in their community, or leading well in their family. I agree with you. I think that is the measurement to sell, to pay attention to. But you said, the whole foundation is around trust. For you, you know, how do you have somebody, focus and develop and build trust?
In developing that skill in others, I think it's a foundational understanding of what it looks like to be trustworthy, to role model trustworthiness, and to also be vulnerable, because
Mm.
people trust those that are willing to say, hey, I screwed up. I really made a mistake. And if I had it all to do over again, I would do it differently. And you have to be an honest communicator. So, honesty is clearly part of that equation. But you have to be willing to have the right conversations. You have to be willing to have the hard conversations. You can't move people forward. You can't grow leaders if you are trying to avoid the difficult things. And honestly, that creates a very different sort of bond, because when you have had more difficult conversations, you've engaged in someone's development, you've engaged in their growth. And they can take that and move forward. And it goes back again to just being willing to learn from doing things that perhaps you didn't do the way that you wanted to do them the first time. So you grow through that. It makes you a better leader. And when you're willing to have the conversations, it makes you a better communicator. And that creates another bond of trust.
Yeah. So, I'm hearing you say that, and my mind's like, well, what makes a great communicator?
Not wanting to please people all the time, I guess, is part of it on the leadership side. If you think about that, we want people to be happy. We don't necessarily want to create discord, and there's a right time and a right way to have conversations. But if we try to please all the people all the time, we're never effective as a leader. So I think being careful in your communication and in your delivery is extraordinarily important. It's always important to be tactful in delivery, but it's important to have the conversations when you need to have them rather than delay them.
Yeah.
That creates distrust, honestly, over the course of time.
I yes, absolutely. And I pulled this up. It was conversation that I had last year. And, one of the things I think we're starting to see a lot of is a lot of leadership void in the industry, and for multiple reasons. And I think, one of the reasons, over the years, maybe additional opportunities opened, distractions creeped in. They took their eye off of their cash flow. Now a lot of leaders are having to get back into production, so they're not there to lead their agents and their teams and their staff, effectively like they were maybe, even 12 months ago, 18 months ago. And so that stress level has gone up. And when we know our stress levels go up, that's where, the stress responder in our fight or flight creeps in. But what you were saying there, what makes an effective communicator, is that there's two other pieces to that. It's, the freeze, right? Or, they're going to fight, they're going to flight, they're going to freeze. And then the other one that I just, didn't even like, once I kind of understood this and they unpacked it, was what they kind of called the fawn. And I'm like, well, what the heck is a fawn, right? What is that, right? And they go, the people pleaser, conflict avoidance, no boundaries, overwhelmed, maxed out, codependent, very needy, identity issues. And I'm like, whoa, right? So like, when we've been in, kind of in, throughout our career for so many years, right? And we've gone through, just in this industry, being able to ride through, so many cycles. With me, getting licensed in January of 05. So, things in 05 and all of the money incentives, and then all of a sudden, boom, 7, 8, 9 happens. And then, kind of what we've seen, after that. But I look back at my leadership style and some of it, and I'm like, dang, I know I was in that box, and so it's like,
we all are at times.
Yeah. So, when you get to that point, Sarah, when you start to, you're in there, how do you grow out of that into, you know, because that's not serving yourself and that's not serving the people around you. So how do you, move out of that to where you're growing and developing that leadership skill that we all really need to be the best versions of ourselves?
Well, I think there are two things. First of all, everybody, like I just said, goes through something. And there are times when we have to shift what we're doing, and so that maybe we can't devote as much time to the leadership side of it. I look at leadership at all levels of an organization. If you will look around, it's not really the person at the top. Everybody in the organization can be a leader. And so you can rely on others to lead others in the organization. And even in real estate, you have people coming in the door brand new. They can be extraordinary leaders. And I think you give people the opportunity to grow into that. And that provides a huge amount of leverage within an organization. And, when you're in that point, you do have a breaking point. You do have the time where you realize you've got to do something differently because you can't continue on the trajectory that you're on. And that's the awareness point. So you can't create change without awareness. So once you have the awareness, then you have to have a concrete plan of moving out of it. You can wish it, certainly, but without a concrete plan, you don't know if you're really going to get the outcomes that you would like.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are your thoughts, as kind of just pulling from your experience and really getting in? I mean, how many of these people that you've had that you see that's just in it for, the paycheck, to get out of the survival mode? Is there a lack of vision, a lack of big picture that you've seen over the years? How come they get into real estate? How come they take on, these teams, these models? Do they have a clear direction of what they're really trying to do?
Well, often not. And I think we move in and out of that again. I think when somebody comes into real estate, they may see it as something that's a little glorified rather than the hard work, boots on the ground business that it is. It takes a lot of effort to get that business up and running. And certainly as you build a team, it takes not only effort in leadership and financial wherewithal to build it. There are so many moving parts that a leader can often lose focus. That happens to all of us. That's a breaking point for most people, and I think that's a point at which people can lose vision of what they're trying to build. And I think honestly, if we don't revisit our vision day in and day out, it's easy to get sidetracked because there are so many fires, so to speak, that we're putting out in the real estate industry. When you're dealing with people, honestly, you can have stress not only with the consumer side, but you have stress when the agents that are part of your organization are having their own stressful situations. That filters onto you. So those things all cause you to get sidetracked from a vision standpoint and from an emotional standpoint. And it takes an awareness to pull yourself back to center.
Yeah, it does. And definitely losing sight of that. I think that's why, having that, leader's responsibility is to have that vision, but being able to articulate it and, have a map, have it there to where they're able to remind themselves and to remind others, as we just got to be reminded more than being told anything. So
absolutely, people want to be led and they
right.
want to know the vision. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. And it's our responsibility to be able to provide that as leaders.
You've kind of got to ride through, the evolution of getting in there, 2000, getting in, the evolution kind of where the broker model and then into the team and then now the mega team model and then how it's even expanded. Like where is the value proposition today within the real estate industry as far as, structure? Obviously we know individual agents, they can do their own thing, be kind of a practice. They're not worried about, they're just trying to put together a couple deals or, just enough for a lifestyle. But really those that are looking at it to build a business, like where is the business model going?
I think we see more and more teams that become larger teams. What we are seeing a lot of, certainly in our area, is that people want to be part of something bigger. They're tired of hanging out there kind of as a solo agent. It doesn't matter which organization you're part of. If you're a solo agent, you're a solo agent. So being part of a team gives the opportunity to connect and collaborate differently where everyone's on the same page. And there's a level of support that I think doesn't exist as a solo agent. And I think also from a support standpoint, it's very, very difficult to begin to grow a team in today's world. When I first got my license and built a team, I had financial commitment, but I didn't have the extraordinarily expensive commitment of technology and leads that people have today. So people spend hundreds of thousands of dollars providing that for their agents. Agents cannot do that alone. There's no question. And while we have a pretty substantial team here, we're part of a larger network within place, which we recently joined. And there is no way that we could ever provide that to our agents without that level of support. So teams are getting larger for a reason. It's not only cost, but it's today's agents. They really don't want to be isolated.
Yeah. No, I agree. We're seeing it more and more and more. And then, starting to even see, teams within the teams, kind of structure and, being able to provide that additional value add for those agents that, know how to generate their own business, that, want to have some of that entrepreneurial DNA. However, they still want to ride together, and they don't want to try to step off and do it on their own. So, trying to kind of fine tune and tweak that. And, this, I think you have to take in, market conditions, you have to take in price points. There's a couple other variables that have to go into kind of how that monetary exchange within the model, but that comes back to value, right? What's the value proposition to the agent? And, you look at, if you understand, for people listening in, the evolution of how whole real estate thing even worked, and what the value proposition was from, the broker, the owner standpoint, to now, the teams within the brokerage, to, even independents out there, what are they offering? Or it's just, there's just so, many ways to kind of structure it. But I think it all comes down to is, what's the value that you can, that you want to make, the promise you want to make. But even more importantly, Sarah, this is, what's the promise you can keep?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You can say anything to anybody, but then you run into the problems with being incongruent with your words and your values. And that doesn't work for me. So, you have to believe it, but you have to be able to create what you say you're creating. You can't just throw words out and hope that something sticks. And, honestly, I have to give just a real shout out to Nick Good, because I was at that stage of my life where it was more important to me than anything else. Who I work with matters most of all. Absolutely. And I've been through lots of evolutions in my career, but Nick is extraordinary. And Nick has been through every sort of market. And I think that's a huge value to the agents. He has built his business in good markets and bad markets. In fact, he really started out in a horrible market in the financial crash of 2007, 2008, and built quite a large business. And that's difficult to do. It takes a lot of tenacity to be able to move through a market where there's so many outside dynamics and you don't know what's coming at you next. To build a business, to build a team through that, requires somebody that has not only a really agile skill set, but the commitment and the tenacity to do it. So when I look at the value of a team, I think not only is it the simple things like wanting to be part of a larger group or wanting to have leverage in your business, it's being in business with somebody who can move you forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that's huge.
I agree. I believe any new agent coming into the industry better find a team. Find a team that they align with, that they share, the common values. They find a team that can provide the support, that can provide the skills training required in today's market. 2-3 years ago, you didn't have to be skilled, right? I kind of joke, my 11-year-old could have sold houses, a few years ago. And it was based on, personality and just being available almost to that point. However, now, we're starting to see, the void in the skills gap, and where the, how to have a real sales conversation. It doesn't have to be salesy. There's consultative, question-based selling, and really just goal driven, in helping, people, achieve the desired outcome, really not trying to be the hero in their story, more of the whole guide in the process,
Mhm.
helping the client get to their destination. But there's a lack of that training.
Right.
I think the training has been there. It's just been agents haven't wanted to plug into it. They just didn't feel like they
Oh, yeah,
had to.
that's absolutely true. I call that phenomenon the gravy train of real estate, where you literally go to the grocery store and meet somebody in the pet food aisle. They're always friendly in the pet food aisle. And lo and behold, you have a client. And that is not the real world of real estate. So, I tell everybody, any market that's a little off is the best time to come into real estate, because you're more likely to build a business with a foundation, with the training that you need. And then you have enough of a foundation to adapt. When you don't know what you're doing, there's almost no amount of training that can fix it fast enough.
Right.
So yeah, I much prefer the challenges of an oddball market, more or less, to learn real estate, because people plug in very differently.
Yeah.
They
So
assume responsibility.
they do, right. Because you can easily measure effort in skill pretty quickly
Mhm.
in a
Oh, yeah.
challenging market. And so you're able to expose that, and it's the whole, what we reveal we can heal. And that's, that to me is where, it needs the attention. And it kind of leads me into kind of love your take and your viewpoint from a strategy standpoint. Good foundational strategy is solving, your biggest challenge. What are you seeing, from your viewpoint, but also kind of probably a common theme over the years, especially when things get into a kind of a market like this? Like, what's a real good strategy right now?
Uh, to have a solid plan, obviously, know the skills that you need for this particular market. Be willing to learn new skills in the change of the moment, because we all know that market shifts can happen very, very quickly. And if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to not be successful. So you have to adopt different strategies. You have to have a plan, foundationally. So you have to know what training you need. You have to know what things you have to do to be able to get the outcomes that you wish. And when real estate changes, you have to be willing to adapt that to a new condition, to learn what needs to be done. And you have to be willing to fail again, to
Yeah.
learn that you've got to do things differently.
Yeah, I agree. And so, it's just that learning cycle, and I think it's learning faster.
It
And
is.
it takes doing things and breaking things. And I'd always joke with our team, what are you wrestling with? What are your some challenges, or what are some challenges you're overcoming? A players tend to be problem solvers. So, what problems are they solving, or what problems, I just don't even like the word problem, but, what challenges are they solving? What obstacles are they overcoming? Or where are they stuck? And I'd always joke is that if that's not happening, that just means you're not doing anything.
Well,
And
that's absolutely true. And you led me to something that sticks in my head from time to time. I believe it's Coach Michael Burt that said, "Money changes hands when problems are solved."
that's
And
right.
that's the essence of what we do in the real estate industry.
Yeah.
It's not just as simple as putting buyers and sellers together. It's a whole problem solving situation from beginning to end.
So for you, from your viewpoint right now, and knowing the history and the cycles, where is the biggest problem?
Oh, the biggest problem right now is that I think we have short-term memory. Honestly, when people look at real estate and they look at things like interest rates,
Mm.
we forget that we've been here before. And I remember buying my first house, and I was thrilled. We were thrilled to get a 12% interest rate, because it had come down dramatically from where it was. Now, that ages me, of course, but that's okay. I've seen some. And that was just a remarkable thing. And even through the 2000s, when we were ready to purchase a different home, and I think this was around most likely 2003, 2004, something like that, interest rates were around 7%. They popped up to 9 for a little bit of time, and that was normal. So then we have the unicorn market where you can have an interest rate below 3%, which is extraordinarily unusual. My parents had an interest rate of 3% when they bought a house in 1953. So I'm told I was not alive back then, but I'm told that that's what the interest rate was. And yet we had one at 2.5%. So people think that's the new normal, and it's not. So we've forgotten our history, and we have to train our agents that if you look over the course of time, very few things are really new. But we do have to be the ones that lead our clients, that inform our clients, and let people know that this is just a variation on normal.
Yeah, it really is. It's so important to pay attention. I love that short-term memory, and it's so true, right? And sometimes it's selective short-term and not willing to want to revisit that and
Right.
understand. So no,
Yeah, and yet head in the sand will not move you forward. You have to confront it.
Not at all. I think that's another challenge right now too. There's a lot of that. We talked about the fight, flight, but the freeze. I think there's a lot of people with the head in the sand, and it just doesn't do you any good, right?
Well, and honestly, that's a bit of a normal response. It's just when people are overwhelmed or they don't know what to do, it's sometimes easier not to do anything, but not doing anything is also a decision that will not serve you well. So you have to muster up the courage, and a lot of times it takes courage to move forward and do things differently.
It is, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Just be willing to put it out there, willing to take action, because that's
Right.
where confidence comes after the action. It doesn't. You don't have to. You're not gonna
Absolutely.
feel confident and then take the action. You got to take the action, and the confidence will the feeling will come later.
You bet.
You
And
know,
I think that's a good value of teams right there too, because you've got a collaborative group of people that help you get through those things, help you have an awareness around the situations that occur on a daily basis, or the changes, or hey, I've lived longer than you have, I've seen this before. This is an important thing to consider, that
Yeah.
we need to pay attention to history.
Yeah, I think, too, the value of getting into the teams and even the bigger teams is there's more, there's more history, there's more experience, there's more, vantage points, there's more collaboration, there's just a greater sense of mentorship and guidance, getting into that type of an environment, even if you are a little seasoned, maybe you have been in the business a couple of years, maybe you have done a couple, couple dozen transactions. There's still the value there, like you said, in the power of collaboration, at least, connecting in some capacity. Like, there's different structures based upon the value proposition within these team structures. There's not an all, one size fits all. That's the thing that I've seen from the evolution of it. And you and I have even talked about that, is that, it's got to be, it's not rigid. There's some elasticity to it based upon, the value that you bring to the table and the value and the resources required for you to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish. And so I think that's where I believe the bigger the teams get in moving into the future, the more, like I said, the elasticity to the agent, that's the teams that are going to win, is being able to really add the most value to them, and in a fair value exchange, meaning
Correct.
compensation, exchange is fair based upon, the value proposition being made and kept.
That's absolutely true. And, the value proposition is not just about the people that have been around the longest too, and not just the services and tools you provide. I love agents that are new to the team. I love agents that are new in real estate, because everybody has a different vantage point. And I think the minute we think we know what we're doing, that's a dangerous thing in real estate.
Yeah.
Because everything changes, and it means that we may not be learning based. So I think a very fundamental skill, not only of agents but teams, is the ability to be learning based and adaptive.
Yeah.
And that's the elasticity. We can't look the way we've always looked and expect to address the issues of 10 years from now.
Yeah, I mean, I love that when agents come into the team, into the organization, especially wherever they've had success in any equity or any previous career of their life. Like, where have they been successful? Like, where you were a successful athlete. What made you successful? Like, what can we learn and apply to what we're trying to do? And how does that help the whole organization get better? Right?
Absolutely. And if you think through that filter, everyone has a gift. And developing that gift is what causes people to succeed more easily. So if someone's been an athlete, they typically have the gift of discipline, among other things. And that will serve them very well in the world of real estate. But taking everyone's gifts and enhancing everyone's gifts, maximizing those gifts, gives you a really strong organization. So it's not one person or a few people, it's the entire organization that is really that living, breathing organization that provides the value.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome. And I think that is one of the key responsibilities of leadership is helping everybody uncover their gift and how they can lean into that gift. And then that's where the team environment and the team models, to me, because that complements you, right? You're playing with your gift and you're surrounding yourself in an organization that complements you. That's we win.
And that's where true satisfaction comes, when you live your life, your best life, and you're utilizing your strengths, minimizing your weaknesses, but living in your strength zone and your gift zone. You become just a very satisfied person. You have days, ups and downs, certainly, but overall, it's an opportunity to really be who you are.
Right.
And I think keeping or helping people along that journey is one of the most critical things that we can do. It gives them opportunity, it gives them satisfaction, and they're part of something that collaboratively that they might not be on their own. So many different aspects.
I love it. Yeah. Behind the vision, to me, then kind of comes to that, right? Comes down to the collection of people within the organization. And, right now for you, knowing kind of the climate we're in, what are the key traits, the characteristics? I know you said discipline, but what are some of the other key, attributes and traits that we look for or know? Maybe it's maybe it's something that we're aspiring or working to improve. But what are some of those key things that we look for in our people that are going to be almost essential to to thrive in this market?
Tenacity is a huge key. You can't just throw in the towel at the first awareness of a challenge. So tenacity and being able to stick through things through the course of time is extraordinarily important. I know that people often give up before they succeed because they didn't have the tenacity to cross the finish line that they could not see. So that's important. The ability to communicate well is an essential skill. I mean, we are leading our buyers and sellers, whether we know it or not. We're educating our buyers and sellers, and it's important to be able to have those conversations as well. So tenacity, communication, and honesty is always a key trait, and that leads to the trustworthiness that's so important in the client and the agent relationship. And I always think vulnerability is extraordinarily important, and sometimes people think that that's a weakness. But when people are willing to be vulnerable, then we can move them forward. When somebody says, I don't know what I don't know, then we can move them forward. So to me, that's a hallmark of a learning-based person, when they have an awareness around what they don't know.
Yeah. No, I love it. I agree all there, right? I think too, a have to instead of a want to type in today's climate, like you said, because if it's just kind of I don't have to do this, then it's just like dealing with a homeowner, right? Or a home buyer. It'd be nice to, if we could, it'd be nice to get that price, but we don't have to make a move. Probably not worth your time. And I think that's just, kind of where we have to make that decision, do we want to, bring somebody into our organization that's not going to be there to live to the standards that we're trying to withhold. I think that's kind of the overarching thing too there, right? Sarah, is just kind of the standard. Like, what is the standard that we have?
Well, absolutely. And, in the absence of standards, anything anybody will do. And standards are important because your lowest common denominator in an organization has more influence on the organization than you think. And I'm not talking about a new person with no transactions. I'm talking about someone that's unwilling to do the things that they need to do or don't honor the commitments, those sorts of things. So the standards are clearly about, on the agent side, doing the things that they need to do, knowing what is required of them to be part of the team and how important it is to carry our team name forward. With the reputation it has, we don't want someone that would jeopardize their reputation. So there's so many different pieces to look at. Certainly our value is to provide what we say we're going to provide. On the agent side, they have to be willing to step up and commit and to work hard. It takes a lot of work to get the plane off the runway, so to speak.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, and then it's still not easy to fly it, but it takes a lot of devotion, time, commitment, and again, the famous word tenacity to be able to pull that off. Yeah. So somebody has to have the burning desire to do it. And if you're not in the industry for the right reasons, they won't last.
No. And I think that's, us as leaders, that's just got to be part of the filtering process and asking those tough questions in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And kind of laying that out. And, you're so spot on. I was just thinking about, what it takes to get the plane off the ground. And then, most of us are assembling it while it's in the air. And, we reach a certain altitude and, just understanding as people are parachuting into the plane, the different dynamics and geniuses that we're looking for to be able to land it safely back on the ground. And so it is, it's fun. It's definitely every day, waking up, if you love challenges, definitely building any type of small business, which all of us are building small businesses, is you definitely have to embrace it and love it.
Oh, absolutely. You can't shrink from it or you will not have a business.
That's right. Well, Sarah, I greatly appreciate you jumping in, adding a ton of value like I knew you would, and just been fantastic having you on. And I know I'm excited to continue, working together and what you guys are doing there in the DFW and actually in the state of Texas as we, kind of branched into Amarillo. We're down in Austin. I say DFW's 3 markets. You've got, the North market with Frisco in that area. You got down in Dallas, and then you got over in Fort Worth. So, you guys are really in 5 markets already. And so it's,
oh yeah, we have Houston, Austin, Amarillo, the entire DFW market. And we actually have one of the agents that moved to Corpus Christi. So we may be in Corpus Christi now as well.
Maybe in Corpus Christi. So we're going to be in 7. So we're in 7 markets already. So it's fun and it's exciting. And I know you guys are doing incredible stuff. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you so much. It's a privilege to be able to work with you. Truly, John. It is. Every day I think I'm better because of you. So I'd love to say that, but I appreciate you having me on.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Guys, thank you. We'll catch you guys next time. See ya.